Hello there, good evening, and welcome here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph, and I am the host of this show. Sorry, I almost didn't make it on time, but I was enjoying my friend's cookies, which are the Led Zeppelin of cookies, according to me. And those red ones that she makes, they're the Stairway to Heaven of cookies. No doubt about it. Anyways, we're here tonight, as I did this morning by accident and then had to erase it and start a game, to talk about those prog albums released in 1978. Lots of good stuff that year. I don't know if it's as strong I don't know if it's as strong a year as some of the previous years, but it's definitely got some top-notch albums on this year. I probably will only do 79. I was going to do 73 too, and then I decided, you know what, I've already done 1973 in an entire month. There's no point in rehashing stuff that I've already done. So I think next week will be the final year, but this week we're doing 1978, and I'm just going to talk about my collection of albums from that year that I actually own, and I'll give you the list of ones that I would like to own. They're on my list of albums to get. All really good. There's some other stuff out there too. There's quite a bit of other stuff out there that I'm just not familiar with, so I can't really make too much of a comment on, and I won't. So we're going to start. I got 10 here in my stack. I'll start talking about them, and then at the end, I'll kind of go on a little bit about the other ones in the stack that I would like to have. Okay, so the first one out of the gate is going to be this one. It wasn't originally given to me by, I went through a couple of on-site places to make sure that I didn't miss, just to help me sort through the albums that I wanted to go through, and none of them gave me this album, but I think this album kind of has to be included here. Often think of this as more of a hard rock album, but definitely has some moments of prog on it. Lord of the Rings, Queen of Spades, Pieces of Eight, Aku Aku. These are all songs with some progressiveness to them for sure. Lord of the Rings may be my favorite progressive song on the album, although Queen of Spades is probably my favorite song by STYX, period, overall. So this is an absolute killer album. This is their sixth, I think this is their 8th studio album. Yeah, that would make sense. So this is their 8th studio album. I like the cover, very progressive, and I like the back, somewhat progressive as well. So, of course, this has the classic STYX lineup featuring Dennis DeYoung on keyboards, JY on electric guitars, Tommy Shaw on electric guitars, and all three of them on vocals, of course. Chuck Panozzo on bass and John Panozzo on drums. So, yeah, this is the classic lineup, and they produced like 2 or 3 albums in a row that were absolutely killer. And this one is my personal favorite from STYX, and not just my personal STYX favorite, but also my personal album favorite. Overall, this is, to me, the best album that's ever come out of rock music. That's just my own opinion. For the last 5 or 6 years now, it's been my favorite album. So STYX, Pieces of Eight, that's my first one to talk about. Next up, this is an album that wasn't included in any of the list either, but I think it's got to be included in this list. In fact, all of his stuff should be included in all the lists that we do. This is the Alan Parsons Project, Pyramid. So this is a relatively new album to me. I've listened to it maybe, I don't know, I'm going to guess about 5 or 6 times maybe. It's not in my playlist, nor waiting for its turn in my playlist yet. There's too many other albums that are already waiting their turns to get in there. But this one is quite good. I do like it. It definitely has some progressive elements to it, as do all of his albums, really. This one has some decent bonus tracks as well. I kind of like this cover too. It's kind of different. Yeah. Pyramid by Alan Parsons Project. Next up is this one from Gentle Giant. I don't know how progressive this is. It has some progressive elements. This was kind of their attempt to go more commercial sounding. It wasn't a very good attempt either. It's not that great of an album, even though it is Gentle Giant. And I tend to give them a little bit more leeway than some bands I would give, but this is not that great of an album. I wouldn't say it's a horrible album, though. I don't believe they have any such thing. Spooky Boogie is kind of a weird song. It's kind of an interesting song, though. I kind of like it. So this, of course, features Derek and Ray Shulman, Kerry Minier, Gary Green, and John Weathers on the drums. So this was getting to that point where they kind of wanted to go and do a little bit more commercial stuff. It just didn't work out. Should have stuck with what they did, and they even have said that themselves. So anyways, Gentle Giants, A Giant for the Day. Kind of a weird album, to be honest. Next up, this is one of my favorite rock albums, definitely a masterpiece in my masterpiece collection. This is Tormato from Yes. Cover aside, which isn't so great. There's quite a bit of good stuff on here. It's a bit of a choppy album. Not as cohesive as some of their other albums, but the stuff on here is really good. On the Silent Wings of Freedom, which is the final track on the album, this is, to me, one of the most underrated progressive songs and one of Yes's most underrated songs. I definitely think it's a top 5 Yes song of all time. Some of the other tracks on here, the first 3, Future Times, Rejoice, and Don't Kill the Whale, are all more well-known songs by Yes from this album. All 3 of them are good. I don't think they're as good as I originally thought they were, but I still think they're fairly decent tracks. You've got Release, which kind of opens the other side with the drum part, which I think there was a little bit of an attempt to try and show off Alan White's abilities. I thought it was pretty decent. I've always kind of liked it. It was, when I first started listening to this album, it was probably one of my favorites. The songs that have stood the test of time for me, Arriving UFO and Circus of Heaven. Now, a lot of people do not like Circus of Heaven. They see it as a John Anderson throw-in, and makes no sense to a lot of people. Some people just trash the song, but I've always liked it. I like it because I think John Anderson's voice is amazing on this, and I've always kind of liked this for periods of time. In my history, this has been my favorite song on the album. Arriving UFO it's a little bit different than some of their other stuff, and I kind of like the guitar part on it. And then, of course, you have the other 2 songs on here, which are Madrigal or whatever you want to say it, and Onward, which are both more classical kind of, I would call them low-end ballads, whatever you want to call them. Really good stuff, but not their best stuff on the album. But overall, I like this album, despite the obvious conflicts the band was having. Some people don't like the Biotron, think it makes it sound thin, say that the production's not as good on the album. Personally, I like it a lot. So next up comes from Camel. Now, this album did fairly well with the critics, I believe. It's still relatively new to me. I've maybe gone through it a half dozen times. Nothing really has stood out for me on the album, but I think it's a pretty decent album to listen to. It definitely within that Camel range, that kind of softer progressive rock sound that Camel, I think, is sort of known for, although they do have a couple of albums with a little bit heavier feel to them. This one to me is not one of those, but it's a decent album. To me, it might be the last of the really good Camel albums from the 1970s. So today, Breathless from Camel. Next up, we have from Peter Gabriel. This is Peter Gabriel 2, Most people kind of come into Gabriel on Gabriel 3 or Security or even So, which are all really good albums, as well as I like Us quite a bit as well. All four of those are really excellent albums. This one, however, is a little bit different than those. This is more pastoral in nature. It's more of a classical album, I guess you might call it. Not as heavy as some of the others, but lots of really strong stuff on this album. Some of my favorite Peter Gabriel songs are on this album. On the Air and DIY, which are both also on his live album, are two of my favorite tracks off of this album. And I kind of prefer the live versions of them, but still pretty good. Mother of Violence, White Shadow, and Animal Magic, to me, are all classic Gabriel sound. Love all three of these tracks a lot, all for a little bit different reasons, but they also have a similarity to them too. A Wonderful Day in a One-Way World. It's kind of a different song, but I kind of like it quite a bit. Indigo is good. It's kind of weird, though. It kind of reminds Indigo and Exposure to me are kind of similar, kind of quirky, a little bit hard to digest at first, but definitely grew on me over time. And then Home Sweet Home, the end, the album is fantastic. The other two songs, Flotsam and Jetsam and Perspective, are both decent enough, but not as memorable as the rest of the tracks on the album. Gabriel 2. Next up, Genesis, And Then There Were Three. So this album to me marks the end of an era, the end of that progressive rock era. Now, some people say that kind of ended with Duke, but this one, I think, was the last really progressive album by them. Having Deep in the Mother Lode, which I think is, Undertow is good too. They're both pretty strong. Deep in the Mother Lode's probably my favorite track on this album. Some of the other songs, like Scenes from a Night's Dream, has all long been one of my favorites off of the album. And of course, you have The Lady Lies, Say It's All Right, Joe. So a lot of people don't really like this song, Say It's All Right, Joe. I kind of like it. It's kind of different for them, but I like it anyways. Most of the other stuff is pretty decent. The album took a while, but it kind of grew on me, and now I kind of see it as a good progressive rock album. Maybe not as good as some of their earlier stuff, but definitely kind of ends the era on a pretty positive note. Going into the 80s with Duke was Duke, of course, some people see as a good progressive album with some pop tracks on it as well. Not too dissimilar from this one, where they started with Follow You, Follow Me, which is a track that kind of led them down that pop era road. But I don't mind this track. So anyways, overall, I think it's a pretty strong album, and I think it deserves a mentioning. Okay, we've got three left. So next one is this one by Tangerine Dream, Cyclone. I do like their stuff, Tangerine Dream. It's not that anything in their discography really stands out as being magnificent, but there's a lot of really good stuff, and there's some of that on here. All the stuff on here I think sounds really good. They're a band that I like to listen to when I'm just lying down and I want something to kind of focus on, but not push too hard on my brain. And yeah, I've got several other albums now, and this one is, I think, the first one I owned and probably the one that I like the best at the moment. So Cyclone by Tangerine Dream. The last two, I think, are probably the best two. Yeah, well, eventually, I think this one will be among the best two of the album. So Jethro Tull's Heavy Horses, kind of similar. I found this to be kind of similar to Songs from the Wood, but maybe not quite as good. Some of the stuff here is pretty good. Not as memorable as Songs from the Wood, but I think this album requires a lot of listening to for me to really go all the way in on it. But I thought this is a decent Jethro Tull album, getting down to the end of that classic era, but still really good. And I do kind of like this cover, even though I'm not really sure why it's called Heavy Horses instead of just horses. But they must be. The good thing about this album too, like so many Jethro Tull albums, is that there is a lot of extra bonus tracks on here that came out at the same time, which are really good. I like this. And the last album on the list tonight is going to be this one, Hemispheres from Rush. This is one of Rush's best albums, probably I would say this is top 3 for me for Rush. 3, maybe 4, maybe top 4. I never really liked the Cygnus X1 books, 1 and 2, off of Farewell to Kings and this. But they grew on me over the last 10 years. So I now like this song quite a bit. It's very complex. Geddy Lee's voice maybe at its peak at this point in time, as he soon after this began to change his sound and become a lot more moderate in the use of his voice. But this is an absolute killer album. That backside of the album with Circumstance, The Trees, and La Villa Strongato is like among the best Rush sides of any of their albums. This is an album I go to fairly regularly when I want to listen to Rush. There's just some absolute magic on this album, if you ask me. It didn't take initially very well for me. It was the one Rush album that took me a fair bit of time to get into, but once I got into it, it then became among my favorites. Now, the song La Villa Strongato, which is the instrumental on the album, I think is among the very best instrumentals in rock, if not the best. So that's my take on Rush's Hemispheres, and that's the final album of my list. I'm going to give you some of these other albums that I thought I would like to have and I think are good. A lot of these I've already listened to at various points. Actually, all of them I've listened to at least once, some of them multiple times. Some of them usually only once, but I knew I liked the band quite a bit, and some bands get a automatic purchase without listening to as well. There's a few like that. We call them blind buys, I guess. So the first one, we're going to do 2 by this band. So National Health's self-titled album, and then again, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, so bear with me. It's called Of Kieves and Cures from National Health as well. This is a band that I kind of like and kind of don't like at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but both these albums I think are decent, so I think I would like to own both of them. UK, of course, I've listened to many times. I actually prefer their second album over this one, but I still like this one. War Tongue by Edo. I'm not sure how you pronounce the band. I've heard this album once. I liked it. Gotik and their album Essenes, I think is another decent one. Taco, however you want to say it, self-titled album, I think is another really good one. A Song for All Seasons by Renaissance. Well, most of that early Renaissance stuff is really good, and this one probably no exception to that. Steve Hackett. This is the one album here that I have not listened to. Please Don't Touch Me. But if it's from Steve Hackett, I'm almost sure I will like it. Bursting Out from Jethro Tull, which is a live album. I don't own any live Jethro Tull, so this is the one. Maybe he has better ones, I'm not sure, but this is the one that I've been thinking about getting, so it's good that it was available to talk about today. Number 12 from Barclay James Harvest is another band that has come on for me that I kind of have grown interested in. Incantations from Mike Oldfield. I do like the 2 Mike Oldfield ones. I own Discovery and Tubular Bells. Sorry, I was trying to remember the name of it. So anything by him is of interest to me now. And then the last one here is Green from Steve Hillage. So I'm looking forward to collecting these albums over the years as well. So those are my albums for today. I'll give you these ones back as well, the ones I own anyways. So the ones I own from 1978, Rush's Hemispheres, Jethro Tull's Heavy Horses, Tangerine Dreams Cyclone, and then there were 3 from Genesis, Peter Gabriel's 2, or Scratch if you prefer that, Camel's Breathless, Yes's Tormato, Gentle Giant's A Giant for the Day, Alan Parsons Project's Pyramid, and STYX's Pieces of 8. I don't know how progressive some of these are, but they definitely have a little bit of that element going on. I'm sure there's others that are on my rack that I didn't, or I forgot. And if I did, I'm sure some of you will mention those as you go along. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Into the Progverse from 1978. We have 1 year left to do, and that'll be 1979. And then I'm going to go on to some other topics. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. We'll see you all then. Take care and have yourself a good evening. And goodbye here from the Prog Monster.